The invisible choice. Have you ever heard of strong syndrome? It's the name that psychologists have started using to describe people who always seem to be the strongest in the room, but who, deep down, are on the verge of collapse. They are the ones who solve everything, hold everyone back, calm crises, and cry alone when everyone sleeps. This was the case of Julia, a 36-year-old woman who, from the outside, seemed to have everything under control: an organized family, up-to-date bills, a smile on her face. But no one knew that. Every night, she cried in silence, feeling crushed by a weight she couldn't explain. "Why is everything always left for me?" she asked herself. "Why do I have to be strong all the time?" This question is more common than it seems. In fact, according to Harvard Business Review, more than 60% of people who occupy emotional leadership roles in their families or communities say they feel they are carrying more than they can handle. But they remain strong because there is no other way. But what if I told you that this burden is not a mistake, but a signature? What if the weight you carry is actually an indication that you have been called, chosen, to something that goes far beyond what others can see? Does it seem strange? So let me ask you a simple but powerful question. Why did pain choose you? The answer may be shocking. Maybe she didn't choose you. Maybe you were trusted with her. And yes, there is a huge difference between being overwhelmed by something and being entrusted with it. This changes everything. Be part of our spiritual family. Subscribe to the channel today and comment "I believe" below as a symbol that you accept your role in this great transition. Let your energy be counted among the chosen. The time is now. The beginning of truth. This message is not a cheap motivational speech, and it's not a disguised accusation either. This is a spiritual mirror. One of those rare moments when you feel like the universe has stopped to ask you, have you ever noticed that you've been living as if you were ordinary, but everything around you points otherwise? When you look at your life honestly, you notice a pattern that few have the courage to face. While other people fail at the first challenge, you resist. While others complain about small delays, you deal with family, financial and emotional crises. Without a manual, without support, without rest. And yet you continue. The question here is not just how much you can handle, but how much why this is all falling on you. Most people think it's punishment, others think it's karma, some say it's bad luck. But there is a much deeper answer, and it lies in what few dare to touch: the spiritual world, the old standard. Since ancient times, there has been a clear pattern. Those who were chosen for greater missions never had easy lives. Joseph was sold by his brothers and unjustly imprisoned. Before becoming governor and saving nations, David fled as a fugitive before becoming the most remembered king in Israel's history. Moses spent 40 years in the desert before freeing an entire people. They all had something in common. They were treated as rejected before being revealed as chosen. And maybe that's where you find yourself now. No one sees what you really carry, and maybe you don't even understand it yet. But it all points to one fact that you need to accept. The weight on your shoulders is not punishment, it's construction, it's a sign of trust. What's at stake? Have you ever stopped to think that you might be experiencing the beginning of something much bigger, but you're still trying to survive as if it were just another difficult day? The problem is that when the chosen ones don't recognize that they are chosen, they live as survivors. But when they awaken to the purpose, life changes color. The weight remains the same, but now it makes sense. And here's the revelation: your path wasn't hard by chance. It was necessary to prepare you for an impact you don't even understand yet. But be careful, this impact will not happen alone. He demands an answer. The time is now. There are moments that seem ordinary, but they are turning points. You think you're just hearing another message. But what's happening now is much deeper. It's your spirit being tugged to wake up. This message found you. It wasn't the other way around, and that is already a sign. The question now is, will you continue carrying everything as if you were alone, or will you finally understand that you were set apart for something that others were not? Will you keep saying, "Why me?" Or will you start asking, "What's all this for?" Because the answer to that last question changes everything. Your journey is just beginning. It's time to regain your strength and build a new path. Subscribe to the channel and be part of this community that is awakening to the truth, the weight that reveals the call. Have you ever stopped to think about why some people face more losses, more rejections, more battles than others? Have you noticed that while some seem to go through life lightly, others carry responsibilities that they didn't always choose? This difference has a reason, and no, it's not bad luck or bad luck. There is a little spoken but profoundly true spiritual principle. The greater the purpose, the greater the weight that comes before it. Yes, you read that right. What many see as punishment in the kingdom of God is actually disguised preparation. It's not rejection, it's selection. Maybe you grew up hearing that difficulties are signs that God has moved away. Maybe someone told you that if everything was going wrong, it was because you were doing something wrong. But the Bible tells another story, and so does life. Let's look at one of the most emblematic narratives in biblical history, that of Joseph. In Genesis 37, around 1898 BC, a young man of just 17 years old was betrayed by his own brothers. Cast into a cistern and sold into slavery, he spent years facing injustice, including imprisonment for a crime he didn't commit. However, this same person, years later, became the second most powerful man in Egypt, Genesis 41. He didn't get there despite his pain, but because of them. The pain didn't destroy him, she formed him. The same pattern repeats itself in the life of David, anointed by Samuel as king, 1 Samuel 16, but persecuted by Saul during much of his youth. Before taking the throne, he lived as a fugitive, sleeping in caves, dealing with betrayal and abandonment. This happened around 1010 BC, and even then, David became the model king cited to this day. Both carried a burden before seeing the fulfillment of their promises. Not because they were being punished, but because we're chosen for something big. And these days, if this seems distant, look at the present. In 2022, a survey conducted by Journal of Religion and Health revealed that individuals with a strong sense of spiritual purpose demonstrated higher levels of resilience in the midst of chronic suffering. Pain didn't destroy them, it shaped them. Do you know someone who is always called upon to solve family problems, the one everyone looks to when something goes wrong, who holds other people's emotions but doesn't find anyone to hold them? This someone, almost always, doesn't understand why life demands so much. But what is happening is something deeper. It is being positioned as a column, as a foundation, and foundations always get the most weight. The burden that reveals the structure. Think about a building. What supports the entire building? The base. If a wall breaks, you fix it. If a window breaks, you replace it. But if the foundation gives way, the entire building collapses. This is why whoever is called to be the basis of something greater needs to be forged with more rigor. This is not just a spiritual metaphor. It is a truth that is confirmed in psychology, in leadership, in life. Those who were made to support tend to experience more crises than those who just follow along. And that brings us to an essential point. Weight is not a mistake. It's an invisible recognition. It wasn't by mistake. You may have lost people, experienced betrayal, faced illness, or struggled with situations that seemed unfair. But what if all of these experiences were used to build something within you that others simply don't have? This is the essence of spiritual selection. God does not choose the perfect. He chooses those available. And he molds them through fire, not to punish them, but to prepare them. It was like that with Moses in the desert, with Esther in the palace, with Job in pain. And it's been like that with you. The problem with not recognizing purpose, the biggest risk of carrying so much weight without understanding why, is falling into the trap of self-pity. And the enemy knows this. If he can make you think that you are just unlucky or a victim of life, he prevents you from seeing that you are foundation of something eternal. The right question is not, why me? Is, what does God want to do through this? Because when that question changes, everything changes. The new perspective. The weight doesn't go away. The responsibilities continue. But something changes. The meaning. You are no longer being crushed. It is being built. What once seemed like punishment is now part of the plan. What was once pain without explanation is now a hammer-shaping destiny. And when you understand this, even tears change their taste, because now she waters the soil of a meaningful future. You got here not because you were unlucky, but because he was entrusted with something that few could handle. This is the truth that the world does not understand, but heaven has already recognized in you. And from now on, you also need to recognize it. It's time to regain your strength and build a new path. If this video is making sense to you, don't stop here. Click sign up now and discover the next step towards your transformation. Forged where no one sees. Have you ever felt forgotten, like you're stuck in a phase of life where nothing happens, no one notices what you're doing, and everything seems like a long wait with no explanation? This feeling for many is seen as stagnation. But what if she is in fact training? What if this silence is the secret field where great purposes are being prepared? The truth is that the biggest impacts are born away from the public. Those who have been separated to cause real transformation are not formed under lights. They are shaped in the occult, the work the world doesn't see. Let's talk about construction. In any project, the first few months don't have much to do with what will be visible. The initial process is to bury structures, dig the ground, position beams. It's rough, lonely, and invisible work, but it is this hidden work that will sustain everything that comes after. Now compare that to life. There are people who seem to blossom quickly. They emerge, receive applause, visibility, recognition. However, many times, what is built too quickly also collapses easily. Those whom God chooses to support eternal things do not grow overnight. They go through seasons of silence, of anonymity, of invisibility, but there is a deep reason for this. Big missions require big roots. The secret is in the desert. The Bible is full of examples that follow this same pattern. Moses lived 40 years in Egypt, and then another 40 in the desert, a total of 80 years before fulfilling his calling at 81 by freeing Israel, Exodus 3. It was in this silence of the desert that he unlearned the logic of the palace and learned to listen to the voice of the invisible. David, after being anointed by Samuel, 1 Samuel 16, did not assume the throne immediately. He returned to the fields, tended sheep, and faced years of persecution. Joseph spent more than 10 years between slavery and prison before being exalted. These were not coarse errors. They were silent training. The myth of visibility. In today's world, where everything revolves around visibility, it is common to think that what does not appear has no value. Social media, likes, instant applause, all of this creates the false idea that if no one is watching, then it's not worth it. But spiritual truth goes in the opposite direction. God does not build haste, he builds permanence. And for this, he carves his chosen ones in places where no one is looking. It is in this environment that humility grows. This is where identity is established. It is also in this place that character is strengthened before the influence comes. The weight of invisibility. The phase where you are not noticed can be the most painful. It doesn't bring applause, it doesn't generate recognition, and often you yourself begin to doubt whether you were really called. But this phase is one of the most sacred of the journey, because it is there that intentions are purified. This is where you decide whether you want to show up or obey. Jesus himself lived 30 years in complete anonymity. Only after that did he begin his public ministry, which lasted just over 3 years. But those 30 hidden years sustained the 3 years that transformed the history of humanity. The training is deep. The process of spiritual preparation does not only aim to produce external results. It has the objective of internally form the emotional, spiritual, and mental structure necessary to sustain what is to come. People who climb fast without inner structure often collapse. According to a survey by Gallup Institute, leaders who do not go through periods of deep personal maturation have 50% more likely to develop emotional crises and abandon your goals in the first 3 years of public exposure. i.e., being shaped in secret is protection, not punishment. When impact arrives, everything makes sense. The moment of fulfillment always arrives. What was being formed in obscurity will, at some point, be revealed. But those who have been trained in silence arrive with authority. They don't just arrive with appearance. They arrive with weight, with consistency, with roots. Those who were forged away from human eyes do not need to prove who they are. They are. And when they arrive, no one can deny it. They were prepared by something greater than any earthly institution or process. You are in training. Perhaps you are precisely at this stage right now, where no one applauds you, where you feel forgotten, where it seems that all the effort generates no return. But in fact, this is the most important moment of your journey. You are being polished. It is being carved by invisible hands for a mission that has not yet been revealed to the world, but is completely clear in the sky. When the time comes, you will understand. Nothing was in vain. Every silence had purpose. All the waiting made sense. Share this knowledge with the world. Together, we can spread this message and help more people become free. Subscribe to the channel and send this video to anyone who needs to hear this truth. The weight that overflows generations. Imagine for a moment that everything you do today, every decision, every omission, every seemingly small choice, is writing entire chapters in the stories of people you don't even know yet. It may seem exaggerated, but this is a spiritual and emotional reality ignored by many. What you don't face now will be faced by someone later. What you refuse to heal will be inherited as a wound. What you ignore, someone else will have to resolve, sometimes with more pain, more effort, more tears. This is called generational responsibility, and it doesn't disappear just because someone decides not to care. What the Bible already showed throughout Scripture, we see patterns that repeat themselves in worrying ways. In Exodus 25, it is written that the consequences of disobedience can extend to the 3rd and 4th generation of those who reject me. This is not an arbitrary punishment, but a revelation about how our attitudes reverberate beyond our lifetime. A striking example is that of the house of Eli. In 1 Samuel, the priest knew that his sons were doing evil, but did nothing to correct them firmly. The result was a curse on his lineage, and his name no longer occupied the priesthood in subsequent generations. And what about Saul? His disobedience cost him the continuity of his family's reign. It was the decision of one man at a specific moment that interrupted the destiny of an entire offspring. These records are warnings, not just stories. They are there to remind us that the price of omission today will be charged tomorrow, and often not from us, but from ours. Science confirms the spiritual principle. Epigenetics, a recent field of biology, has already proven that unresolved traumas can genetically affect even 3 generations. Research with Holocaust survivors, for example, revealed that their children and grandchildren inherited traits of anxiety and fear, even without having experienced the event. In other words, even science recognizes that what we experience and how we choose to deal with it has a direct impact on those who come after us. Now imagine this in the spiritual field. How many negative patterns are repeated in families because someone in the past preferred silence to confrontation? How many children carry guilt, addictions, beliefs and struggles that actually belong to their grandparents? What burden are you leaving? Maybe you are holding on to pain that didn't start with you. Perhaps he inherited the abandonment that his father also suffered. Or you carry the fear of failure because your mother lived under the shadow of comparison. Or struggle with poverty, not because you made bad choices, but because there were generations before you who accepted it as fate. And that's exactly why you're here. Why someone has to break the cycle. Someone needs to decide that what started before will not continue forward. The decision that interrupts cycles. Breaking a pattern is not easy. Facing what has always been ignored requires strength, faith, and firmness. But every time someone says enough, something powerful happens. Joseph had the opportunity to take revenge on his brothers, but he chose forgiveness. That choice didn't just save his family. It paved the way for a legacy that spans centuries. Esther risked her own life to defend her people. She could have hidden behind the comforts of the palace, but she understood that her position required courage. These characters were transition points. There were people who said, "The pain stops here." What's in your hands? You may feel like your life doesn't have much weight. You may see yourself as an ordinary person, just trying to survive. But that's a lie. The way you deal with your dilemmas today defines how your children, grandchildren, nephews, and even people you will never meet will experience life. If you don't overcome this insecurity now, your child may need to face it twice as much. If you don't heal this rejection, perhaps your granddaughter carries this same pain without even understanding where it came from. But if you say yes to your process, your transformation will become the starting point for many. Freedom begins with choice. You can't change the past that shaped you, but you can decide what to pass on. You can choose to stop the flow of pain. You can choose to leave a legacy of faith, courage, and overcoming. You can be the one that the heavens looked at and said, "This generation will be different because of him." The responsibility is great, yes, but the privilege of being the link that transforms generations is even greater. To not miss any message from God, click the subscribe button, write "I'm ready" in the comments, and start aligning your energy with the transformation that is coming. The decision that changes everything. The time has come to face what is in front of you. After everything that has been said, you only have 2 options. Continue pretending that none of this has anything to do with your life, or accept, once and for all, that you were separated to carry something that goes far beyond your story. It's not about exaggeration. It's not about creating a role you don't have. It's about recognizing the signs that have always been there. Because if you stop to think about it, all of this has been trying to warn you for a long time. You realized that not just anyone supports the house when everything falls apart. Have you noticed that while others run from crises, you are the one left to fix it? You understood that even tired, even without support, you are the one who continues, even without anyone asking you to. So here's the truth. You have been entrusted with something that many could not bear. It's not about merit, it's about positioning. Being chosen is not about being better. It has to do with being willing. God does not look for perfection. He looks for availability. and those who are willing receive more responsibilities. Whoever accepts the challenge carries weight. Whoever responds to the call becomes a reference. Now, understand, if you don't act, if you continue to push this decision with your belly, another generation will pay the price. It's not an exaggeration, it's a fact. Ignoring what you know you should do today is pushing the problem onto your children, onto your grandchildren, onto a future that will have to solve what you didn't want to face. The naked truth. You are holding something in your hands, a decision that could create a new story or keep everything as it is. If you keep trying to hide behind excuses, life will keep pushing you back to that same point until you face what needs to be resolved. You can continue claiming that you are not ready yet. You can keep saying you're too tired to fight, or you can clearly assume that it is time to act, because time doesn't wait, the clock doesn't stop, and what you choose now will resonate for years to come, for better or worse. The weight never goes away, but the purpose justifies it. This responsibility that seems to crush you will not magically disappear, but it can turn into a mission. When you understand that there is a purpose behind pain, suffering stops being pointless. When you realize that the burden has a destination, it becomes lighter. Not because the load changes, but because you change. You stop seeing everything as injustice and start seeing it as a real opportunity to leave a legacy. Straight to the point. The question now is simple. Will you continue living as if you were just one more? Or will you finally accept that what you carry has a specific destination? Yes or no? Stay or get up, respond or ignore. There is no middle ground. Either you embrace who you were designed to be, or you live a life below what was intended for you. The end of sorry. This is the time to stop justifying yourself. No more placing the blame on circumstances, others, or even God. What needs to change now is your positioning. You already have understanding. You already recognize the call. You already know what you need to do. What's missing is the courage to say, "It's up to me." And when you say that, everything changes. Final statement. It's not the weight that defines the chosen one. It's his response to the weight. The burden continues, the path continues, but now you know, it's no coincidence. It never was. You have been entrusted with the responsibility of being a base, support, and bridge. You didn't come this far to be just another one. You have been set apart to lead. And now, with everything clear before you, there is only one question left. Will you keep running away? Or will you finally take the place that was meant for you? The choice, it was always yours. If you feel this calling within you, subscribe to the channel and write "I am chosen" in the comments. Declare that you are ready to receive what is already in store for you.